Hey, how's it going, guys? This is your boy Hazzed, and today on the Battle for Azeroth beta, we're going to be discussing the new changes and the new potential builds that Frost DK could be facing here on the Battle for Azeroth beta. So, hopefully within the next week or so, we'll be able to see these changes and test them out here on the channel. And obviously, in this video, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the changes and give my opinions that of things that are going to be going on.
It's who we are, it's what we do, we've come so far, and now we pay the price, so don't even cry. The world is breaking down, and I cannot leave the ground.
Starting off comparing these talents, because obviously these are really what we want to know about. I mean, come on, let's be real. Starting off with these level 56 talents, it's going to be Runic Attune is going to be replaced by Inexorable Assault, and Inexorable Assault is slightly changing from what we used to know in Legion, where you would get frost damage based off of auto attacks. Well, the new Inexorable Assault is no longer going to grant damage to auto attacks, but it's going to grant extra frost damage to your obliterates. So that's going to leave us with some interesting choices in the level 56 category. We could obviously go with Inexorable Assault for a little bit more consistency between targets, maybe granting us a little bit more burst when we're inevitably hitting a target first off. Kind of be interesting to see, and also the fact that it stacks up now when you're not in range of enemies. Hopefully in PvE situations we don't need to be in combat to get that to stack up, because that would be a lot better that way instead of actually forcing us to be in combat, because really it's only going to give us a few seconds of proccage on an Inexorable Assault running to a target in PvE, because the longer you're off a target, the worse your DPS is going to be. So really using that ability not based on being around targets is going to be kind of I don't know. I've never really been a huge fan of this ability myself personally, so to see it change into something like that, I'm definitely okay with it. It could be interesting in PvP combat for granting us some extra burst, but the other choices we're going to be left with is Icy Talents, and that's staying the same, and obviously Shattering Strikes. As for the level 57 talents, Freezing Fog is now going to be replaced with Runic Attune, so that'll still be there. And also Runic Attune is slightly being changed from proccing 1 runic power on attack to 3 runic power, so it's going to be a lot stronger and give us a lot more consistency than we previously had with this ability. Alright, so this is one of the ones we're waiting for. This is the one of the golden talents that we've been needing on a Frost DK. They have decided for the level 58 talent to completely get rid of Abomination Garbage Might, because I mean obviously we hardly ever used that ability, and it really wasn't that great since it was completely RNG and didn't affect players, so it was like why would we really want that stun? It really didn't make a lot of sense. So they've decided to actually give us back Asphyxiate. Every spec, Blood, Unholy, and Frost all have their Asphyxiate back. We now have our 5-second stun so we can counter rogues. We have our 5-second stun that's going to allow us to close gaps better. This is really good for Frost DKs in general. This was one of the major missing puzzle pieces that we needed, and I talked about for quite a long time for Frost DKs that we just needed our CC back. We needed our CC back, along with some self-survivable and a little bit of healing, which we'll talk about that a little bit later. You guys on the same page with me, but it's going to be absolutely amazing having Asphyxiate back, since it is a melee stun, not a magic stun, so it can't be dodged, it can't be Cloak of Shadowed. It's what we really needed as a Frost DK to deal with certain classes, and of course close gaps on some of the more mobile classes in Battle for Azeroth. As for the level 60 ability, it seems that Ice Cap is now being replaced with Gathering Storms. Ice Cap will pop up its head a little bit later, so it's not completely disappearing. But it's also being changed, so we'll talk about that too. So Gathering Storms is now going to replace the level 60 talent, which Gathering Storms moving is kind of interesting. I do like that it's moving out of the level 90 talents, getting away from Frost Scythe, because Frost Scythe would be really fun with Gathering Storms. As we know from the legendary items, it's a fairly good combination. But as for it going up there, it's going to compete with Avalanche and Glacial Advance, which Avalanche is actually changing a bit. They are thinking about it. They said they might take it out, but apparently Avalanche can now proc off of Howling Blast procs, which would make it do a little bit extra damage and maybe a little bit more burst. Now I'm not sure if it's only gonna proc off of that. If they only made it proc off of Howling Blast procs, it honestly wouldn't be very good. So we'll have to see exactly what they plan on doing with that to really decide whether or not it's gonna be good. As for the level 75 talents, this is one of the things we've been needing, guys. This is like the go-to. This is the need of Frost DKs. We are getting that so good survivability that we've been needing. As you can see in the level 75 talent, we are getting back Death Pact, as Unholy got back Death Pact also. Death Pact was something we definitely needed. We needed a secondary heal, something instead of Death Strike to get us through a lot of the major CCs of a lot of class, or how to counter burst, or things along those lines to make Frost DKs a lot more viable in the 1v1 situation, or be able to fight off somebody in world PvP situation. This is going to make our self-healing and our self-survivability quite a bit better, also in arena situations with healers, because we'll be able to actually use a major CC to counter some nice burst. So very stoked for that, something that we've been needed for quite some time. Now here is where the list kind of gets crazy. Everything up to there seems to be fairly good, seems to be really well, and this is the part that kind of goes crazy, and we got to start talking about some of the other abilities soon after, so it'll make a little more sense. As for the level 90 talents, Gathering Storms, we know, moved up to a level 60 ability, and now we are getting Sindragosa's Fury. But the thing with Sindragosa's Fury is they're going to rename it to Frostworm's Fury, and they're making it a 3-minute cooldown instead of a 5-minute cooldown. We've got our Sindragosa's Fury back, but the other talent that they're moving up to that in the level 90 category and replacing Frozen Pulse with is Freezing Fog, which happens to be one of our best current consistency DPS abilities out there. So we kind of have to decide between we want to get our damage from Sindragosa's Fury, or we want to get it behind Freezing Fog. Now Sindragosa's Fury is definitely a good ability which could be easily fixed, but I think one of the things that's going to kind of make Sindragosa's Fury lacking is what they're doing exactly to the level 100 talents. Is Pillar of Frost is no longer a baseline ability. Pillar of Frost, it seems to be either getting removed and replaced with obliteration effects, or that we're keeping the strength buff proc on Pillar of Frost and they implemented the extra obliteration effects. I'm not 100% sure on either one of those, but I'm assuming that Pillar of Frost is now going to do the job of obliteration, being as it may. Losing that much attack power or strength is again easily fixable just with scaling damage, but Sindragosa's Fury benefits majorly off of Pillar of Frost. So losing that 20% strength, or losing that extra attack power that usually makes Sindragosa's Fury good, may be terrible for that ability. So we'll really have to see whether or not that's going to be good. And also those two abilities are going to be competing with Frost Scythe, so it's going to be kind of a hard choice there, deciding between those three abilities. Sindragosa's Fury, though, I'm excited to see that back. I'm excited to see that we get our dragon back, but it's going to be kind of interesting to see exactly what they're going to be doing with that ability, and really see how much damage it's going to deal. As for some changes that we didn't discuss that has to do with certain abilities on Frost DKs, Empower Rune Weapon is now Hungering Rune Weapon. It's been removed. Hungering Rune Weapon is now baseline, so it grants us a little bit more burst out of this ability since we get that 20% haste. That's obviously staying, and then of course we get extra runes and runic power to give us a little bit more consistency. Now that Hungering Rune Weapon is now baseline, Breath of Sindragosa will also be more viable since you can elongate your breath again using Hungering Rune Weapon instead of trying to use breath with Empowered Rune Weapon, because currently on the Battle for Azeroth beta, if you're really good with breath, it ends up being your best bursting ability in the current build. So we can definitely see this ability becoming a bit more viable in the long run based on some of the abilities we have. But again, we really need to test these things out. Like this is just speculation at this point. Obviously, we have no idea which way this could go. And just the fact that Pillar of Frost is being changed as much as it is kind of has me and a lot of people in the community, as well as people on the forums, definitely a little confused and a little bit scared for the future changes. But definitely all they'd have to do is scale up the damage on some of these abilities, and it would completely make up for the lack of overall 20% strength. If that makes sense, it's definitely easy to fix just a overall damage nerf in comparison to fixability. So, I mean, we'll see how that goes. I mean, it's going to be hit and miss. It's going to be hit and miss. So we talked about Pillar of Frost. We've talked about Inexorable Assault, which is going to be kind of cool. We talked about Runic Cocoon. Avalanche has been redesigned. We talked about that. Death Pact Heal. Yep. Sindragosa's Fury and Ice Cap. Yep. We've talked about all the major changes. So that's what we'll be facing kind of in the near future in deciding exactly whether or not it's going to be good for Frosty Case here on the Battle for Azeroth beta. Of course, I'll keep you guys updated, and as soon as those come out, I'll be on here testing the living crud out of Frost and deciding whether or not it's going to be good for us, whether it's bad for us, and of course if it needs any balancing issues or changes in the near future. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this update on Frosty Case, and I'm pretty dang stoked to see some Frosty Case changes starting to happen that are affecting us. That's going to change either our gameplay or potential builds that we can play in the near future. So again, leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Comment down below if you have any questions. Let me know down in the comments below whether you enjoy these changes, whether you think they're going to be good, whether you think they're going to be bad, whether you're worried or not. And until next time, this was your boy Hazzed.